sea monsters rumored to be capable of sinking entire ships, and evidence that the Shire probably existed on Earth and it was in Indonesia. But first, let's meet a mythical horned creature that might not be as imaginary as you previously thought. Number 10. The unicorn. Not really the unicorn that we're familiar with in legends and myth, but a fascinating animal nonetheless. The earliest account of unicorns come from a well-known Greek historian, Titius, who described a large animal with a horn on its forehead in India. It's quite possible that he saw a rhino from a distance and thought it was a horse with a horn on its head. But fossils unearthed in Siberia may have proven the existence of this mythical creature. Called the Siberian unicorn, it was 1.8 meters tall, over 4 meters long, and weighed more than 4 tons. It was covered in a shaggy coat and earned its nickname from the huge horn that grew out of its forehead. Yes, it doesn't quite resemble the classic unicorn of lore, but so far this is the closest that we can get to a real one. They were believed to have died out 350,000 years ago, but a discovery of a fossil in Kazakhstan changed all that. A carbon dating test revealed the fossil to be only 29,000 years old. This means that the animal roamed the Earth 320,000 years longer than previously thought. Number 9. The bunyip. The bunyip is a little like Australia's Loch Ness Monster in that it lives in the water, and despite hundreds of people claiming to have seen this beast, it has never been photographed. But the legend might have actually had rational origins. The bunyip is an Aboriginal legend. According to Australian history, the name means devil or spirit, and the creature is said to look like a cross between a crocodile and a horse. Although accounts do differ depending on who's telling the story. Bunyips stalk and kill human beings and supposedly make an eerie sound like a hollow boom, which certainly seems terrifying if you've never been around any shotguns or farm equipment. Most scientists believe that the bunyip has derived from an extinct rhino-sized marsupial called the diprotodon. Remains of this animal were first found in the region in 1939, and while it's unlikely that there are any surviving populations of diprotodons in Australia, they only died out 20,000 to 40,000 years ago, which means that Australian Aborigines certainly coexisted with them. That suggests that legends might have come from a real-life encounter between humans and diprotodons. Number 8. The basilisk. The basilisk, the half-bird, half-snake monstrosity that is said to be born from a snake's egg hatched under a cockerel. It is one of the deadliest creatures to menace the mythological world, and it is extremely hostile towards humans. You might be familiar with this monster from the Harry Potter book and the movie The Chamber of Secrets. But the monster shown there is somewhat incomplete and only appears as a giant serpent. The basilisk is sometimes described as a giant snake without the cockerel's head or wings. Still, its movement is unlike any other snake's. Rather than slithering with its stomach on the ground, it crawls forward with the front half of its body towering above the earth. The monster is armed with venom, but its most lethal weapon is its gaze, which is said to have the power to instantly kill anyone who locks eyes with it. The potency of its gaze is discussed in all myths that relate to him across several different cultures. Sometimes they're also known to breathe out fire. Does the description vaguely remind you of something? Many experts suggest that the basilisk is none other than a cobra, from its size to the way it stands erect when preparing to strike. Even the cobra's hood could be mistaken for wings. And the fire-breathing part? Well, we all know that certain species of cobras do spit out venom, and this venom causes a burning sensation when it comes into contact with human skin. Number 7. The Cyclops. Greek mythology describes Cyclops to be gigantic creatures that sported a single eye in the center of their heads. They were also known for their barbarity, afraid of neither men nor gods. The most famous Cyclops was Polyphemus, which attacked Odysseus in a cave and ate half of his men. Odysseus blinded the Cyclops by running a wooden stake through its single eye. Then Odysseus and his men escaped, tying themselves to the underside of sheep. While sheep that are strong enough to carry the weight of a full-grown man probably doesn't exist, many believe that the Cyclops did in fact walk the earth. In fact, there was evidence to back it up. Well, sort of. Quite a few huge skulls were found which appeared to have a single eye socket in the middle of their forehead. These skulls were found in the island of Cyprus, which, according to legends, is where Cyclops lived. Well, the skulls didn't belong to mythical one-eyed monsters, but rather belonged to a dwarf elephant which populated the island long ago. The eye socket was the central nasal cavity and opening for the elephant's trunk. Many dwarf elephant skulls have been found in Cyprus, especially in caves where the Cyclops were supposed to have lived. Therefore, it is perhaps natural that an elephant skull could have been taken as evidence of a race of giant, man-eating creatures with one eye and terrible table manners. Number 6. The Kraken. Considered the biggest and the worst of all mythical creatures of Nordic folklore, the Kraken was said to be a powerful sea monster, strong enough to drag an entire ship to the depths by wrapping its gigantic tentacles around the vessel, or by swimming in circles around it to create a whirlpool that will drag the ship down. Since the first encounter was recorded in the year 1180, hundreds of accounts of gigantic tentacled sea monsters dragging ships to their doom have been told. The Kraken was said to be able to devour an entire ship's crew in a single mouthful. The myth of the Kraken is likely to have arisen after sightings of a species of giant squid or Architeuthis ducks, which can grow to around 59 feet long, or possibly the colossal squid, or Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, which is significantly larger than the giant squid and can grow to unknown lengths. Very few colossal squid have ever been found as they live in the deep waters of the Antarctic. For this reason, it has proven very difficult to find evidence of how squid attack their prey. Some recent research does show that they encircle their prey with their tentacles before pulling it into them and eating it. So, you never know. Number 5. Hobbits. If you are even barely into pop culture, you'd know what a hobbit is. They are basically miniature humans who have furry feet and don't wear shoes. And, according to stories, have a propensity to save the world from dragons with hoarding problems and evil pieces of jewelry. What you might not know is the fact that actual hobbits did exist, but not quite the ones you've gotten used to. In 2003, archaeologists found the remain of a 3-foot-tall adult female in a cave on an Indonesian island. At first, there was speculation that the skeleton was a person with microencephalia, a medical condition that causes short stature. A comparison of the skull with modern microcephalics, though, seemed to suggest it came from a typical individual. There were indications that the bones came from a very primitive humanoid. For example, the bones on his feet were very primitive. The Indonesian hobbit has since been called Homo floresiensis, or Flores man, as the bones were discovered in Flores, Indonesia. Number 4. The direwolf. Direwolves became widely popular when Game of Thrones hit the mainstream. These large wolves are a constant companion of the Starks and are shown to be large, intelligent, and protective creatures. They aren't, however, merely just a figment of George R.R. Martin's imagination, they are in fact based on real animals. Direwolves lived during the Pleistocene, between 250,000 to roughly 10,000 years ago. Unfortunately, real direwolves were not really the size of ponies. They were larger than modern wolves, though, and could weigh as much as 200 pounds, almost twice of what a very large modern wolf might weigh. Their skulls are much larger compared to today's modern wolves. Ironically, though, their brains are much smaller. However, if they had bigger brains, we probably wouldn't have had amazing fossils of them. Thousands of direwolf fossils have been found in the La Brea tar pits. Scientists believe they were trapped there when they started feeding on carcasses of other animals trapped in the tar. Number 3. The gorilla. Before gorillas were discovered, tales of large, hairy, savage man-beasts with bad tempers living in the wilds of some faraway place seemed too good to be true. Their legend persevered until 1847, when physician and naturalist Thomas Savage managed to obtain gorilla bones, including a skull, in Liberia. Prior to the discovery of bones, the first recorded sighting of a gorilla was made by the explorer Hanno in the 5th century BC. Another explorer named Andrew Battelle also told tales of a human-like monster visiting his campfire every morning after the humans had left for the day, but he also noted that these monsters weren't intelligent enough to put more wood on the campfire, so his credibility quickly went up in flames. Live gorillas were left unseen and untouched for a decade after Savage's discovery, until explorer Paul de Chailloux hunted live gorillas and sent specimens back to the many societies who were funding his expeditions. The subspecies mountain gorilla unbelievably remained a mythological creature for more than half a century more, only being discovered in 1902 by German captain Robert von Behring. Number 2. The duck-billed platypus. The duck-billed platypus is a real animal, despite it looking like a sewn-together oddity made up of mismatched parts. First discovered in the 18th century, it was considered by many to be a ridiculous hoax, and not without reason. This was an age when naturalists were creating all sorts of strange creatures, with the help of taxidermy and a creative imagination. It was first described by English zoologist George Shaw, who wrote that it resembled, and I quote, the beak of a duck engrafted on the head of a quadruped. All the fakery aside, the platypus is remarkable for many reasons, not just its peculiar appearance. Naturalists could not determine whether the creature was a mammal. Did it lay eggs or give birth to babies? It took another 100 years for scientists to discover the answer to that. As it turned out, the platypus is one of the very few mammal species to lay eggs. And it's poisonous. Number 1. The Komodo dragon. Prior to 1910, Komodo dragons were considered mythical creatures. There were rumors spreading that 8-foot-long, 100-pound prehistoric lizards were living on a remote Indonesian island, but its existence had been up for debate. Wanting to prove or disprove the existence of these creatures himself, Dutch colonel official Lieutenant Stein van Hensbroek put together an expedition to Komodo Island. He was able to catch and kill a 6-foot specimen, and he sent the carcass as proof to the Zoological Museum and Botanical Garden at Bogar, Java. Seemingly not satisfied with the discovery, American explorer W. Douglas Burden decided to put together an expedition himself, making up his mind to catch live specimens. In the end, the expedition was able to pile several dead and 2 live Komodo dragons onto their steamer and return to New York City, giving scientists plenty to study and visitors of the Bronx Zoo plenty to see. See you guys next time!